Hi, everybody. My name is Terry Maroney. I'm a professor here at Vanderbilt University School of Law. It's a real pleasure to welcome you here today to hear, to meet, and to learn from a truly extraordinary man, John Thompson, or JT, as he likes to be called. So JT is the founder and executive director of Resurrection After Exoneration, which is an organization based in his native New Orleans, Louisiana. Across America, nearly 300 people have been freed from prison, some of them from death row, after DNA testing has proved their innocence. And still others, like JT, have been proved innocent by other means, like just good, old-fashioned investigative work. Most of us assume that exoneration is at the end of a horrible journey. And in a lot of ways, it is the end of a horrible journey. But in a lot of other ways, it's also a beginning. Once the cameras are gone, once the news stories run, once everybody said, wow, look, another guy walks out exonerated after 18 years, some of them on death row. After all of that happens, there's still a man who has to start his life over. And a lot of these people come out and find themselves with no money, no job, families that have died, families that have moved on, and a world, an outside world that's no longer recognizable to them. And that's where John's organization comes in. It's run by exonerees, for exonerees, and it tries to help people define for themselves the contours of the new lives that they have to build in the post-exoneration world, and to give them the skills and the resources to make those worlds for themselves. And in recognition of his amazing, amazing work, John has been awarded fellowships from places as varied as Echoing Green, the Petra Foundation, and the Soros Foundation. So all of that's who JT is today, but I want to tell you just a few words about who he was in 1985 and how he got from there to here. And I'm also going to wonder why that's no longer working. Okay. There we go. Okay. So dial your own mental clocks back to 1985 if you were alive then. In 1985, JT was an ordinary guy. He was 22 years old. He was the father of 2 small children. And then he went to hell. He was falsely accused of murder by a man who was trying to deflect attention away from himself. Before long, JT was in custody, and the news of his arrest in this very high-profile murder ran on some local news television. And then things got worse. Somebody saw his picture on the local news coverage and came forward and said, hey, that looks like the guy who I think robbed my family. So then the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office made a very critical decision. They decided to deliberately try him on that robbery accusation first. And they did that so that if they got the conviction, they could then try him on the murder and use the earlier robbery conviction as an aggravating factor to make him death eligible so he could get the death penalty in the subsequent murder trial. And it worked. He was convicted of the robbery. Within 120 days, he was convicted of the murder, and he was sentenced to death row. All for 2 crimes that, as he always insisted, he did not commit. So how do we know this? How do we know that all those years later, in 1985, JT was telling the truth? You're going to hear most of the story from him and from the materials that he's brought in today. But it's the kind of tale that should make all lawyers and all people who want to be lawyers take a very, very good, hard look at ourselves. This was not a story of an innocent mistake. There was evidence, and it was in the prosecution's hands from day one, that would have shown that John Thompson was not the man. And the prosecutors, who were seeking to have John Thompson executed, hid that evidence, they destroyed some of the evidence, and then they lied about what they had done. Now, as you all know, because he's standing here with us today, JT was spared. He spent 18 years in prison, 14 of them on death row, virtually all of them in Louisiana's notorious Angola prison. He came within weeks of execution. But when the truth finally came out, so did he. And then he did what Americans do. He sued somebody. Now, JT couldn't sue the individual prosecutors because under our law, prosecutors have absolute immunity from lawsuit. But he could sue the Orleans Parish District Attorney's office, and that is precisely what he did. A Louisiana jury heard that case, and after hearing the case, they awarded him $14 million because Harry Connick Sr. and his office had failed to train their attorneys in the constitutional obligation called a Brady obligation to turn over exculpatory evidence to the defense. And not only had they committed Brady violations, but Harry Connick and his office had failed to supervise any of the attorneys to make sure they were fulfilling their Brady obligations. So even after the $14 million were awarded, though, JT's legal trials were not over. As many of you have heard, last year, 2011, a sharply divided 5-4 decision of the Supreme Court, they overturned that damages award. And the Supreme Court majority decided that the suppression of exonerating evidence that sent John to prison for 18 years had been an isolated occurrence, the proverbial a few bad apples that didn't poison the office. And this is despite the fact that the suppression of evidence implicated multiple lawyers in that office over the span of 2 decades, and despite the fact that Connick testified that his own understanding of Brady obligations was very poor, and despite the fact that nobody could remember there ever having been any training as to Brady obligations at any time ever in that office. And as a postscript, it's worth noticing that just this year, just 1 year later, after they overturned the award that John had won in the Louisiana courts, just this year, the Supreme Court overturned a conviction in the parish, in the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office, precisely because of Brady violations in that office. So you'll hear more about this extraordinary story, again, from this extraordinary man, John Thompson, who's gone through something most of us could never actually imagine surviving. And I know that you're very much looking forward to hearing from him, so please join me in welcoming John Thompson. I'm going to... You want to show the video? Yes. You guys, bear with me for 1 second.
I was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. It was a lot of pressure on the criminal justice system, on the district attorney office, on the police department to solve this crime because the individual son was murdered, was a very rich person in the city that put fear in our politicians. The night of the crime, a description went out that the perpetrator was 6 feet tall, medium-built, African-American. January 17, 1985, to wake up that morning and watch the news to see that a person that I know had been arrested, Kevin Free. The next thing I know, they're kicking in out there with the guns blaring out in front, scaring the hell out of everybody. And they handcuffed me, told me I was arrested. They didn't tell me why I was arrested. I was being brought down to homicide for questioning. In 8 to 9 hours, I just was interrogated. The black cop come in, they try to tell me about why I'm being so stupid. They know I don't fit the description. They know who did it. Why am I not telling them the truth? And he decided to play a cassette tape for me. And the cassette tape that he played for me was Kevin Freeman saying that me and him was together and I committed the crime and he took off and run. When my picture appeared in the newspaper that next morning, people went to calling in and saying that I'm the one that robbed them. They told me, we got something for you. They brought me down and rebooked me on all 8 counts of them on robberies. Which one of them led to these 3 little kids that was robbed by the Superdome. With that, they brought me to trial and set the murder case back and decided to prosecute me for that robbery case first.
Harry Connick was the district attorney in New Orleans for about 30 years, from the 70s right through until 2002. That was quite a common practice in that office at the time, to charge somebody facing capital charges with another unrelated crime, because it enabled them to get a conviction on a lesser offence first and enables that office to paint the person who is standing trial for their life as a very dangerous person.
At each stage of our process, the post-conviction process that started in 1989, we lost. And we met with him at the prison to tell him that we had failed, that all our work and appeals had failed, and he was going to be executed in 30 days. We became desperate. Someone in Louisiana referred us to a private investigator. One of the criminal defense lawyers down there suggested a woman, Elisa Abalafia. We had never worked with her. So we asked Elisa, go look. This wasn't saying, go find a needle in a haystack. This was saying, there are a bunch of haystacks, and maybe there's a needle in there. We don't know.
I focused on the carjacking case because that was the aggravating factor that the dean's office wanted to then use in the murder trial to get the death penalty. The college-age driver, he began struggling and kicking and fighting with the perpetrator. And in the process of kicking, while he's in the passenger seat, he draws blood from the perpetrator that wound up all over his pants. I looked at the police report, and just as they're describing that we confiscated the bloody pants, the next 4 pages are missing. So why would bloody pants disappear? Answer, you don't want anyone to blood test them and know what they are. We make the discovery that the bloody pants are B, and he's O. And by the way, the car driver's O, so we don't have John Thompson in that car. I'm not sure if he used like a black Sharpie or something big, but I remember grabbing a regular piece of paper and in big letters, JT is blood type O, he's innocent. Or words to that effect, exclamation mark.
When I called home and he told me that was the first thing my lawyers didn't see, what's your blood type? We got it. It got crazier, though. It didn't get any easier. It got worse to me.
Judge Quinlan ruled that we would be entitled to a hearing in the murder case with time to investigate and gather new evidence. We hired a different private investigator. A different investigator found compelling new evidence, including police reports that had not been disclosed to the defense, that had interviews and factual information with witnesses who testified against John, and most importantly, the identities of witnesses who lived near the crime scene, who saw and heard the fleeing murderer, who were interviewed by the police, but who were never identified to the defense. And those witnesses gave accounts to us and in open court that helped establish conclusively that Thompson was not the murderer. The murderer was Kevin Freeman, who was originally charged with Thompson back in 1985. Freeman acted alone in murdering Ray Liuzza and pinned it on Thompson.
John Thompson was released today after spending nearly all of that time on death row. A jury convicted him in the murder of...
To know that a prosecutor could actually
Thompson was granted
reach over the barriers of his call to duty. His call to duty is to seek the truth. When I was arrested, it's been all these years later, but it's kind of crazy that the main prosecutor who was overseeing and who prosecuted both of these cases also prosecuted 8 of us and put all 8 of us on death row. All of us as African Americans, all of us was accused of killing white Americans. All of us is off death row.
Good evening, y'all. I'm happy to tell y'all something. Just go there. Hello? I don't think I need to get signed. Can y'all hear me? Y'all hear me good? I don't think it's walk. I like to walk on.
I'll turn it off. I'm going to turn it off. Oh, it's on too. Okay.
Thank y'all first of all for coming out and inviting me here to hear my story. Hello?
All right, yeah. Thank y'all for coming out to hear my story. It's not a story that I'm proud to sit up here and talk about because it go with the past. And most of the time we're not proud of our past. I am one that's not proud of my past. I was a drug dealer. I sold marijuana, coke, but I was a fence. So I put myself in this stupid position as a youth, selling drugs. A fence is a person that buy drugs or sell products or virgin, anything pretty much. My thoughts was on the streets, I'd rather get caught selling hot merchandise than to get caught selling drugs. So for the most part, I would trade for that in the act. Never thought in my weirdest scenarios that I'll wind up on death row because I was actually buying stolen stuff and selling drugs. Never hurted anyone in my life. Never had any serious arrests in my life. I was arrested for possession of marijuana. I was arrested for littering, and jaywalking and something like that. The best arrest I ever had in my whole life was December the 10th, 1984. The murder happened December the 6th, 1984. 4 days before my arrest. Y'all seen the arrest picture? The picture that y'all seen? That was me being arrested 4 days after the murder had occurred. After a description had been went across the radio, after the police was put the description on what they was looking for. They was looking for a 6 feet tall, medium built, bald head, dark complexion. I was 5'8". I'm still 5'8". I'm probably the biggest as I ever been in my whole life right now. We're about 160, I think, 165. I probably was like 130, something on there. I was a father too. The police arrested me and asked me a simple question. What you know about this crime? It's something simple, you know. But I was because I had never got arrested, it was more because of what my environment was, the people that was around me, the streets I grew up in, the people, the way they did things. They always taught you never talk to the police once you get caught for anything. They tell you, for sure, whatever you do, don't never, ever confess to anything under no circumstances. And that was the first thing out the box, the first thing that they came up with me to confess to something I didn't truly know nothing about. Truly, I didn't know anything about this crime, other than I purchased some belongings, but I didn't know who it belonged to. I didn't really care who it belonged to. That wasn't what I was doing. I was just a fence. 18 years, 8 execution dates, and when you say execution dates, you have to realize that means somebody is actually just really shooting at you. You know, the district attorney get a court to reject your case. So you get 5 or 6 levels of appeal through a capital case in Louisiana. You go through all the courts. Each time you be denied, a district attorney could go and get a stay of execution. Although he knew you was going to be guaranteed all the way. You guarantee that right all the way through the court system. He'd go and get that date of execution to try to make it appear that he being tough on crime. I'm assuming. So every time you be denied, you get up there on the firing spot and he just take shots at you, hoping that he gonna kill you. So for 8 years, for 8 opportunities, he shot at me and missed. That one last opportunity, if y'all notice that last news article that appeared up there, it said the man gonna face his death because of I had exhausted all my appeals. That newspaper article was printed the same Friday that my lawyer sent them saying that they came to court to tell me about when this would be executed. But that newspaper clipping was read in the classroom to my son. My son was in the senior at school, and the teacher read that article because she thought the senior class needed to understand about decision making, about what you do with your life. And she was describing how we waste my life. I was out there committing crimes. The crimes that I committed led me to get ready to lose my life. So she was talking in the sense of I was guilty. But maybe just giving her class a good review of what they might be facing and the decisions that they might have to make. So with that, my son ran out the class crying because at that time he didn't even know that the coach had to turn me down. My lawyers had just came and told me, so it's obvious that the media had then got the wind of the court had turned me down before I even knew. When you watch a man die, when you watch somebody that's living next door to you be executed or taken away, I'd already kicked off, was in Parish prison, waiting to go to Angola after I was found guilty. It happened so fast, I couldn't believe it. I seen my lawyers once, both trial sets of lawyers, seen them once right before my trial. So I couldn't believe I was going to be convicted for 2 crimes I didn't commit, not 1, 2. But it was even harder trying to convince everybody I was innocent. I'm imagining if it was one of y'all I was calling and telling y'all I was innocent of 2 charges, 2 different cases, y'all probably would have laughed at me if y'all would have even listened to me. It's weird how life brings us through these crazy scenarios, how things that I couldn't see. I couldn't see selling drugs. I know I ain't had no weapons. I know I ain't carry guns. I know I ain't do none of these things. But I bought these things, and I hid them, and I sold them. I couldn't see that landing me on death row. I really couldn't. And I didn't believe that because I sold drugs, I deserved to go to death row. But maybe some people say, yeah. When we think about the death penalty and we say we support the death penalty, we support the state sanctioned murders, I don't believe we ever think about we will be put in that position, that we will be that individual that they will be seeking the death penalty on. I think we always want to put that role to someone else or give that role, assign that seat to someone else, but it could really pretty much be us. The question is supposed, do you support it? That ain't the question. Do you support the death penalty? The question is, do you get a state permission to kill you? Do you give the state the authority to kill you? Because you don't have a say-so in the death penalty. You don't have to say so who get the death penalty or not. He do. The district attorney made that decision. So the guy is believing that we support something that I don't really believe we do. I know I don't. I know I wouldn't give them permission to kill me under no circumstances. You know why? On that row, he had 4 guys that I can count out of my head. 2 of them was in Kuwait, and 2 of them was in Iraq. All of them came home and re-enlisted back in the military. But while they was waiting, they have a 2-week still layover or whatever it is. They went in this nightclub, and this nightclub got rowdy, and they got rowdy, and they did what they was trained to do, kill. But our government said, we're going to kill them. You didn't debrief them. You trained them to kill, and you did what you trained them to do. But you want to kill them. Michael Perry killed his whole family, 5 individuals.
escape out of the mental institute to do this. Our society said he was standing enough to stand trial. Him. When I went to see him, who was on death row to mentally ill, the sick, I'm like, wow. You know, what I'm doing, you know, where I from, where I fit at. They be taking everybody off to be executed. No one coming back. I'm facing. So I visit my sons while I'm there. My sons constantly want to get to a point that now they asking me questions. Dad, you killed that man? All of a question coming from a 10-year-old child, recognizing where he coming to visit you at. I tell him no. When we take in all of this, we didn't see right now, we didn't see Troy Davis, we didn't see where 7 of the 8, 9 witnesses that he had recanted. He executed Troy. If Troy is alive, if anything come up right now and tell us Troy was innocent, what is we ready to do as a people? That prosecutor, I'm going to show you on a few. Can you help me get to this? It's the prosecutor who went after my life, who not only mine, several others. I know y'all can't see this picture, they're good, but this particular...
Also for this.
This is the prosecutor who prosecuted me. When I was speaking earlier on that video, y'all heard me say he prosecuted several others. All of us is African Americans. All of us was accused of killing whites. All of us is, 4 of us is home. 1 is waiting on a new trial right now, Parish, Jefferson Parish. And the other one just went in and took a life because he was scared to death. He thought he wasn't going to go through that again. He witnessed probably 20 people be executed. And so, sure, he was successful at his attempt. This lecture, by the way, have a battery pack on the back. So when you touch it, it vibrates. It gives you the sensation of electrocution. He was known, he made a lot of crazy statements, and some of the statements he made concerning the death penalty and how he feel about it, and why he do it. But I would like to ask, since he was successful, what will we do? Or how would we feel about that? About an individual having that much control, that much power, that he can actually kill innocent people? What category do we put that? We know the law. Y'all in law school. Y'all know what the law is. You know what murder is. You know what attempted murder is. You know what premeditated murder is. You know what kidnapping is. You know what refusal of office is. I could just keep going on and on to the different levels of crimes we could think about or we might could charge one with. But should he was successful, would we be looking at him as a serial killer? Or would we be scared? I would look at him as a serial killer if he'd have killed every one of them men. I like to look at that picture because it should make y'all mad, be honest with you. And that's why I put it there, to hopefully make you mad and hopefully make you want to move, hopefully make you want to try to understand why he have immunity, why is no accountability strapped to that position. That's Spanish. This is a cell that we lived it in on Angola in death row. Exactly the same cell. 23 hours a day. You 1 hour out the shower. We have 14 other cells. 14 other people making noise, talking. TVs on the tier, one fan. We put the fan at the front today, put it at the back tomorrow. A lot of mental illness. It goes to the point where you wonder how you keep your sanity. I wonder how I kept mine. I don't believe I did. I get help. I go to psychiatrists. I see doctors. I see everybody. When my lawyer came and told me that it was over with, there was nothing else to do. There was nothing else they could do. I looked back to him and I understood my youngest son was getting ready to graduate from high school. And so I was really concerned about him because I had witnessed another guy that was executed. His son went out there and just did his son just couldn't handle it and went out there and did all kind of crazy stuff. Next thing you know, we seen it on the news, he was killed. And so I was afraid of that. I didn't want that to happen to my sons. So I was begging my lawyers to man, look, please, won't you try to make sure they go to college? I was trying to think of anything that was going to get them out of being hateful for the system. I didn't want my children to go against the system and turn evil or get hurt. So I was trying to create a hope that I could have a way to make them understand, one, that I'm innocent, but sometimes things happen that we can't control. But then when my son found out that it was because I wouldn't tell, because I wouldn't give a confession, because I wouldn't just say where I bought these products from, he asked me, was that worth more than him? That was hard. That was a hard pill to swallow. But that wasn't not to say, because it was a stupid thing that I did. Still brought on to accountability. And at that moment, I didn't have it. At that moment, I didn't have a need to have accountability. I didn't have a need to think about I got a responsibility to my two sons. I'm the only child. I have a responsibility to my mother, my father. I didn't see it like that. I seen it keeping the streets, keeping the straight. The streets didn't care nothing about me, but I cared. So I spent all these years in prison. I was 8 executions. I come home, fanfare, the media, all crazy, thinking that this was a show, thinking that the story was remarkable. It is. It's unbelievable. We don't want to believe that a district attorney could take some physical evidence to dare your trial and go sign for it and throw it away. Just completely throw it away with no repercussions. We don't believe that happened in our system. But he said it's all right. He could do that. He can get away with that. That was the United States Supreme Court said. So I was thinking about this, and I look at that picture, and I always think about all of these guys that was on that road. And I look at this one guy for sure was representing this case in some form or fashion. So that means we have to have partners. We have to have partners in each one of them cases. And so that means them partners in each one of them cases sit right there and allow him to do that. That made me start thinking, oh, wow, crazier then. Because ever since we started this accountability tour, every judge that we asked that simple question, why do you sit up there and allow that to happen? What them judges say is basically, this person is before me every day, arguing cases. Take care of his family. This is how he feeds his family. I cannot discipline that man. Or I would find it hard, that's how to use it, to discipline that man. So, although he took an oath to play this judge role, he's saying, forget all of that. All that is out the door because I know him. I don't know you, and I don't know you. So, I'm going to let you do anything you want to do because I don't know them too. I'm like, whoa. So now we got a DA that have some assistants, juniors, that really don't have nobody to go tell nothing to should something go wrong. Then we have a judge sitting up here who's saying that I cannot deal with this individual because I know him. Wow. So now where we at in our criminal justice system, if that's how most judges look at things, if that's how most district attorneys are first or second or third or fourth or fifth assistants that's sitting around watching these cases transpire, never opening their mouth, never filing a complaint, never going to no superior and watching it happen. We're lucky we don't have a bigger prison population than we have now, although we lead the nation. So it's going to boil down to the simple little facts, because they asked me to give y'all a lot of time for questioning. So it's going to boil down to this little simple fact. What would you do? What would you do? Because y'all going to be faced with it. There's no ifs and no buts about it. Y'all going to be faced with a superior, a supervisor, or some form, doing something very illegal right before your face. And you can't do anything about it, because nothing really is set up in place for you to do anything about it. And then when I think about what that judge said as to why he don't do anything about it, makes me think about you. What would you do? You'd be just out of college, just into your new job. You're not going to tell nobody anything. You know that. I hope you will. But you probably won't, because it's going to turn down to the value. The district attorney in my case, we had one. His name was John Jerry Glass. He testified in my civil case. Mr. Connick thought, because of the evidence and them throwing the physical evidence away, and we found that evidence that we threw it away, he called a grand jury investigation. He thought he was going to be able to find that my lawyers in them docket that report that clearly established my blood was a different type. So his thing was to try to figure out who docket this report and deal with it. So everybody had been always telling him about this young district attorney who was 29 years old in his office that was doing all this incredible work. So when all this hit the fan, he brought him in with them. All the senior attorneys came in. He brought this little young district attorney in with him. And this little young district attorney, Mr. Connick told him, I've been hearing all these good things about you. Let me see how good you is. Give him this case. Give him that case to investigate. And when he gave him that case to investigate, what you think he found? What you think he seen? He came back with enough information and evidence that he thought he had enough to indict at least 4 of the district attorneys. That just was on one grand jury hearing. He still had another week to do it. So he asked Mr. Connick, could he go back and finish presenting the rest of the evidence to the grand jury? Mr. Connick said no. Time limitation, this case is procedurally barred. The district attorney, I'm just trying to say, whoa, hold on. This can't never be disbarred. Can't never be time procedure. I say no. He said, no, let the jury decide that, not us, because the people want to know what happened here. He said no. He said no. He said, yeah, that's what I said, no. He said, if you say no, I'm going to quit. I'm going to resign. He said, so be it. So the next morning, the young man was so hysterical, messed up about it, he went to the news media and testified before the news. He said that he quit on principles of the Thompson case. Mr. Connick got on the news and trying to counter it, saying that he just was a hothead. He was a young district attorney, and because of that, that's why he fired him. So my lawyer broke their neck to go get to him and see what he was talking about. And sure enough, he testified in my civil case, which is why I believe the jury awarded me the money that they awarded me, because Mr. Connick was talking about he being a hothead. You know, that the boy brought in the court, all them letters of recommendations from all the supervisors, all them telling him how good he was and how he a star, how we got to move him up in rank. That's what he did. He had just got married, just had a brand new baby, just bought a brand new house. and walked away out of the job, walked clean away off of that job without even second thinking it because of principles. Do we have them kind of principles? Do we have them kind of values? Maybe not for one man, but what about for my brother? Would I have that kind of value for my sister and my brother? If that was my sister and my brother I was defending, I know that happened. Yeah. So I'm just here, just hoping that what I'm sharing with y'all, that when this time comes, y'all will have an idea what y'all should be doing, or what y'all want to do, or what y'all want to allow someone else to do. Where you're going to get the help from. Because we're trying to figure that one out. That's what we're trying to seek and find out. How are we going to be able to get y'all help? That's been my whole mission right now, to make sure no one else has to sit by and let a monster like that operate without you saying anything about it. It took 18 years of my life. It almost killed 8 other men. We didn't have 143 or 4 death row exonerees around the country. That's a lie. You do know what that means. Y'all do know if 140 men was innocent on death row. That means that same district attorney decided to let a murderer run the street. He decided to let the real perpetrator run the street. So all these kind of decisions that are being made on him, and we're not doing nothing about it. We saying it's all right because the Supreme Court says it's all right. Thank y'all. I'm just going to leave it like that because she want me to let y'all have a lot of answers. Some questions is y'all fault. I need it.
So JT's blaming it on me. You can thank me because we have 20 minutes for questions. So please, I told him that I would keep the queue, so try to catch my eye. So who would like to ask the first question?
What happened to the guy who first pinned on you back 18 years ago? And have you seen him or talked to him?
He was 1995. I won the evidentiary hearing for Crime Stoppers paraded material, and I went back to go on the court order for that, and only to find out that he was gunned down. He was shot 5 times robbing someone, and it was kind of weird because he was shot like 3 blocks from where the murder happened, and shot the exact same amount of times. Yeah, so that's what happened with him. 10 years later, though. That was 10 years later.
Yes, over here.
So, I want to know, have you spoken to the prosecutor in your case and did he predict him?
You know, I see him a few times, and every time I seen him, he act like he didn't know who I was. But I made him know. He get upset. He turn red. He actually win in a lot of cases in Jefferson Parish. I really don't like him. But I do not put, like, I'm doing this campaign now, and so when I get back, I'm supposed to do a lot of different things and with billboard signs and stuff, and one of them is going to be put that picture, okay? Because I want people to understand who they hiring, if they hiring him, what he think. I don't believe he should be allowed to prosecute or work as an attorney no more, period. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Do you think these young people have absolutely limited means for the prosecutor?
You know, it's kind of, I think the professor did a good job because it varies. I don't really believe they have absolute immunity. I believe they got conditional immunity. The absolute immunity is basically mean just that, absolute immunity. If they had absolute immunity, we wouldn't have made it to the Louisiana Supreme Court or to the United States Supreme Court. So they don't have absolute immunity, but it's so precious right now. It is. It's been pretty much boiled down to it now. And I believe, won't you explain it to me better? Because that's your job.
He knows it better than you, but the reason why JT could not sue the individual prosecutors is that the individual prosecutors do have total immunity for what they do in the course of their duties, so charging decisions, all of that. So that is why he was left to sue the office for failure to train and supervise under Section 1983. And that was a good case. But again, the reason the Supreme Court overturned that was to say, to make out a failure to train and supervise, you had to show that it was pervasive practice, a pattern of practice, and they held that JT had not made out that showing. I saw a hand back here, yes. Oh, sorry.
Do people ever believe, like, they don't believe that they're innocent now they know?
The victim family, it's kind of like, that's the bad part about all of this, because for years and years and years, the prosecutor had been planted the seed in their head that you was guilty, and no matter how extreme the case would be, or how extreme the evidence would prove you innocent, some people just be stuck. The family really think I'm guilty. They still think I'm guilty. We had so much evidence came out in my second trial, in my murder trial. He took me to trial again on a murder trial, and the jury took like less than 20 minutes to find me not guilty. And we almost thought about how long it would take them to go in the back, how long it was going to take them to pick out a foreman. And we look like, hold on, we already know the answer. We're going to be the foreman. All right, let's go. And it was just how fast. So we really couldn't even really sit down in the back before it's out. And it was because of all the witnesses, all I would. Nobody never pointed the finger at me. Everybody knew I didn't fit the description. They only had one description. Only one individual did the crime. He was the only individual giving two people up. And he only gave me up because he knew I had the product. He thought I had the product anyway. He knew he sold it to me. And so he said, he did a good job. If I wouldn't have if I wouldn't have had the ability to have that picture of went to jail on that traffic ticket that showed me with a big wish 4 days after the murder when they were looking for a bald head man, I believe that would really set the record straight. But like I said, once again, his family was a very rich family. That was his only son. He was a millionaire, and he took me to 2 trials within 120 days because of who he was, not because of nothing else, because of who he was. Yes, sir.
Who was your defense attorney in the first trial?
Not me. I had 2 court-appointed attorneys. The public defender board was appointed to me to represent me in the murder case. They said, the victim and his family, and so he had to excuse himself off the case. And the court appointed me 2 private attorneys, one named Robert Cooley and one named Patrick Fanning. Robert Cooley had never handled a criminal case in his life. He was a civil lawyer. Patrick Fanning was like one of the top federal prosecutors turned defense. He wouldn't, because I wouldn't take a life sentence, his idea, he wanted to get off the case. His idea of I was guilty, go in there and take a life sentence, I could get you a life sentence. When I wouldn't take it, he decided to ask the judge, could he get off the case? The judge wouldn't let him off the case. So he came to me again, take the life sentence, and I said no. In return, he put a psychiatrist on the stand that seen me one time. And when the psychiatrist seen me one time, he asked me, why did I kill a man? And I said, excuse me? He said, why did you kill that man? And I'm like, man, get out of here. I don't want to talk to you no more. I'll try to end it. The next time I seen him walking through that court, sitting on that stand, you know what he told the jury? He said, I'm the type of person that wake up. He said, like, y'all wake up and you ready to come to school in the morning? I'm the type of person to wake up and look for a gun and go kill somebody. And the DA jumped up and said, that was the best witness I ever had in my life, because what my witnesses said. So, my attorneys was crazy. And the ones who say he couldn't represent me in the murder, he wanted to represent me in the robbery. But he never come see me till the day of the robbery. The day of the robbery trial, I tell him, he told me the day of the robbery, he told me what day it happened. I said, whoa, time out. December 28th, that's the beginning of Mardi Gras season. I know where I was. Because Mardi Gras dress the guys on the floats. So every year, that's a big season. That's like, this is maybe like $700-800 cash money. So we're going to be going out there trying to rob the kids for. But I had never known that. I had never known that the robbery that you were saying I committed happened on December the 28th. So once I realized it, he was able to go and try to scuffle these witnesses up, and maybe I think 6 of them or 5 of them came to court to testify, but the jurors just didn't believe them. The jury just believed the 3 kids over them. I guess they said right there lied for him.
How did you survive being in jail, especially being on death row?
God, I don't know. I'm telling you, I described some scenes, how weird it was. This was an everyday thing. This wasn't 1, 2, 3 days a week. This was 7 days a week. That type of activity, that type of noise was going on. You lose everybody in your family. Nobody comes see you no more. And, the reality is, everything you think you love, all that gone. That disappeared. You wind up being there by yourself. And I can say the grace of God. That's all I can say, be honest with you. I can't put it to nothing else.
You know the story about one of the doctors.
So the baddest thing about all of this was when I come home in 2 or 3, there was nothing available for exonerees. So no financial at all, nothing. I was the only child. My mother was paralyzed and she was living in an old folks home. So my attorneys, I had some rich attorneys, y'all. My attorneys is from Morgan, Lewis and Bacchus. He's like one of the biggest law firms in the world. So guess what? They was millionaires. And so I felt in some good hands. So when I come home, my lawyers and them was afraid that I was going to return back into that environment. So what they did is they put me in a hotel. I stayed in a hotel for like a month. But what happened was, when I first come home, I landed a job at the Deputy Resource Center called Equal Justice, dealing with other guys that was on death row. For the most part, I was everybody's liaison, man. I was the person on death row that they could talk to about decline and get declined to talk back to them. So that made it easy for me to get a job when I come home. But everybody else was struggling. I mean, everybody was struggling. They go through too much trauma, too much downside inside the prison that you will lose yourself in a minute. And most of them come home either depressed, go back on drugs, alcohol, you name it. They just fall deep. If they don't have that right support at the beginning of their return, you almost like asking for trouble. So a group of death row exonerees started to come together and think about what do we really need as a group, as a whole. Before anything could happen, Katrina hit and really blew it up, everything, messed everything around. Everybody was all over straggling and coming back to New Orleans. We decided to go forward with. We knew it was bad at first, but now we know it's even worse. And so we started addressing it. We thought we needed a home. That was the first thing we thought we needed, because most of us didn't have family members. If you stay in prison over 10 or 20 years, you don't have too much of nothing to come home to. Even if I have to come home to one of y'all as my brothers or sisters, y'all didn't know me. I've been gone 20 years. So y'all trying to accept me into y'all house with y'all family and y'all friends. So how y'all husband and y'all wife gonna react to me? And then if I can't get a job, what's gonna happen then? So that's just too much pressure that was put on the guy that was returning and the families. So we recognized that right away, and so we did something about that. We raised enough money to buy a house. We bought a house that housed guys when they first come home. Only exonerated guys now. Only innocent guys that was in prison. We housed them in resurrection after exoneration. We housed them, but at the same time, we got them in a position now where we could feed them all the help that they need, all the resources that they need, the psychiatrist, the doctor, legal advice. We tried to bring them through that. But then we were still falling weak because they didn't have no skills. So we created a soft skill printing machine, printing, silk printing. We do silk screen printing, commercial printing. It's just a form of getting them back into tackle of reality of life. We put computers up there. We got a computer lab where Hewlett Packard donated us a lot of computers, and so we do computer lab training. But guess what would happen? When we was doing all of this and we advertising and we trying to get it to go, we was starting to see, y'all got computer classes up there? So now we have a mixture of senior citizens. But y'all don't know that's weird because they trying to learn what their grandchildren doing. They got these computers in the house and grandchildren get there and you cut them off and you don't know how to get it back on to find out what they're doing. So they say, we ain't here for that. But that's a hell of a mixture. Because what we try to do, we try to come back into society. But we know we messed up. We know we did some crazy stuff. We in prison. We went to prison. We know we was out here doing crazy stuff. So our thing is about reform is about coming back to y'all and tell y'all we sorry. But not only telling y'all we sorry, we want y'all to accept us back. And that'd be the hardest thing, to be stereotyping people. Oh, he come from there, he in prison. What you mean? So what? He in prison, he went to jail, what? But he can't be a productive citizen now? If we can't be no productive citizen after he went to jail, they just lock your ass up and keep him there. Don't let him back out, if that's what we saying. But that ain't what we saying. We saying that we got a system that's supposed to be built upon, re-entering back into society, or preparing us to re-enter back into society, but that's not the case. So we created all of them avenues to help ourselves. And right now we've been really doing good. We've really been kind of we ain't had no one return back to prison. But a few died because of bad health. I'm coming home with all different type of heart. I had 2 heart surgeries myself from stress, from blockage, from the food and stuff I was eating inside the prison. So we know to address all of these serious matters on our own, and like I said, God has been blessed up. But we also seek help from other people. We get students come in and just go at it. We'll get every summer we just had Howard Law students just left. They come to the thing and we dealing with issues. Right now we on Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers is our biggest thing. We dealing with Crime Stoppers. We breaking it down. We're doing research. We saying that the district attorney is hiding most of all the physical evidence behind Crime Stoppers. He's using Crime Stoppers as a tool. The Crime Stoppers is not a police. He don't act as a police, but yet they still get money from the court. The court paid him $2 per case. So every case that go before the court, Crime Stoppers get $2 out of that money. And they use that money for the reward that they give out. So to me, that makes them a partner in this ordeal. So we've been really looking at the confrontation laws. When you face your accuser, we're looking at search procedures laws. What it take to get a search warrant? How many houses is really being searched? How many convictions is coming behind these search warrants? How many bad arrests is happening? And how many reversals is happening after you get a conviction? We're looking at the Crime Stoppers because they totally, maybe it's something that might get criminals off the streets, but it sure has not been proven to be a success. And it sure, tell you one thing, who house being kicked in every night. It sure $100. So, and that's why pretty much nobody don't care about it because of who is being the victim behind it. I'm sorry, I just tell y'all how I feel. So some of y'all looking at me. I know you didn't say that. Yes, I did.
He did say that. So please, 2 things. I'm going to ask him to join me and thank you, John, for sharing all his story with us. So please join us for the next hour or so immediately outside for a reception. I know John would be very interested in talking with you. We also have here Neela Jefferson, who's the media director for Resurrection Without Exoneration. Please learn more about what this amazing organization does. But first, please join me in thanking John Thompson.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Speaking of filling things up.